All right, and we are back in the world of Timberborn, and today we're going to be in construction on our industrial district. In our last episode, we went ahead and cleared up this part of our town and expanded our farmland as well as setting up some water crops. Today we're going to be cleaning out the industry from the rest of this area, possibly expanding our farmland a little more, and then moving this industry over into a new area that we're going to set up back here. Now, this is going to be the first of 3 industrial districts we're going to be building. See, there are 3 main types of resources that we're going to be working with and processing, and each of them sort of has different requirements around the map. The first one is going to be wood, and that's what we're going to be building up today. So we're going to be setting up a region that is dedicated to wood processing. We'll be setting up a district that will plant and harvest all of our trees, and then take the logs that yields and turn them into planks, gears, paper, books, and treated planks for us to use in our other construction projects elsewhere. And then later on, we will be setting up a similar district for processing bad water and a third for processing metal. But for today, we're going to be focusing on wood. Now, we've already started something to this effect back here, and what we're going to do is simply extend this. We're going to sort of be chopping off our original district a little bit closer to home, probably moving some of these structures over to be a part of that, and then extending our planting area back here to include a much larger tree field, and then building our industry and power generation up in these hills. Now, in order to make sure that everything flows smoothly, we're going to actually be setting up a new district center in the area and effectively starting a second sort of miniature town that's dedicated to this process. We'll then set up trade between the 2 regions to ensure that everything goes smoothly. Now, before we get into that, though, we are going to actually be constructing much of this new district using the existing population we have, the existing resources we have, and then once our basic structure is in place, we will be establishing a new district, and we'll go ahead and establish the new district center and remove the old one. Now, to start, let's go ahead and place down a new well back here that'll extend our green space and allow us to use this area. All right, and with this well constructed, we can see that we have nice fertile land back here. We have a few patches back here, but I don't think that's going to stop any trees from growing. And so this will be an effective sort of place to fertilize this region, make sure that it is nice and irrigated and has everything we need for it. With that in place, we can start laying down the basic requirements for what we're going to build. Now, at some point, we're going to be placing down a district center. We unfortunately can't place this on this road, but we do want to make sure that we leave space for it in this region. What we can do, though, is start setting up the basic requirements that our people who live here are going to need. So, for example, we're going to need a large water tank. Let's think about how we want to do this. We're going to want to have, we'll map out some stuff. So we're going to want 2 tiles for the district crossing. We're going to want another one for a branching roadway so that we could have, for example, a zipline station right next to it. And then we will probably be able to set up our core infrastructure. So we'll want to leave 3 blocks before we place down our first structures. And our most important structures that we're going to place are a large water tank and a large warehouse. And these will provide the food and water for our beavers. We can go ahead and set that to water straight away. And for food, we'll set our first warehouse to grow potatoes. And since we don't want our beavers to be terribly unhappy, we can also store some bread here. And that will ensure that the beavers who live here have their core survival needs met at all times. So we'll go ahead and make sure that these are constructed and filled before we even start moving into the region. We can also start creating the branching path off of this. And again, this is going to be where that crossing is, but it means that we can run a line back here and start setting up some core industries and things back here so we can get a sense for our area. So for example, if we set a forester back here, we can see that this forester, where do we want to set this forester so that it can have as large of an area as possible? I think that actually looks really good right there. And that will allow us to start planting some trees. And since this is mostly going to be for chopping wood and harvesting oak, we can go ahead and fill this in with oak trees mostly. We may want to clear out some of these oak trees in order to do some other work, But this forester will actually go all the way over to this path, and that is great because that will give us room to put in some pine trees as well, because we are going to need a great deal of pine resin. So we can have a large field of pine trees over here that will generate a large amount of pine resin for us once they get planted. Go ahead and extend this road just a little bit. We're also going to want to put in a couple of lumberjack flags to make sure that we're able to harvest all of this. Let's see, what is the range on a lumberjack flag placed right here? That is just about right. There may be a little bit of overlap, but that's okay. We can leave a lumberjack operating in the other district just to make sure that they have a little bit of logs there as well. And we can go ahead and extend that road across there and actually set up a couple of core services like a medical bed and a teeth grindstone in this area. Now it does look like we have a few trees up here. We can go ahead and clear those out to start gathering up some lumber for us. And we can set up a temporary lumberjack flag up here that we'll probably want to clear out a little bit later. But for now, that'll give us some locally harvested lumber on site. And I think we're at a point where we can start setting up our core logistics and our core industry. So we know we're going to need this space for our district center, and that we are probably going to want to set our residential area up in sort of tucked back into this corner. So that's where we'll be setting up our houses as well as our primary well-being and decorative items in order to provide for the beavers, which means that the rest of the space can be used for industry and production. Now, I think the first thing we're going to need to do is start setting up places for our beavers to store the items they're gathering. So we'll have an underground pile for logs. We will set up another one for planks. Actually, let's go ahead and have all of these face this way. And then we will need a large warehouse for gears, a large warehouse for paper, a large warehouse for books, and I think a large warehouse for pine resin. And lastly, I think we're going to want another pile for treated logs. Now with all of that out of the way, it looks like we do have a little bit more room here, so we can go ahead and plant a few more trees back in here in order to make sure we're properly maximizing our harvesting space. And also start setting these to the various goods that they'll be holding. So this one will be for planks. This one will be for gears. Looks like we're very low on gears, so we may need to start production on those as soon as possible, even before we set this up as a distinct district. And then we'd said this one would be for paper. One will be for books. Over here we will have one for pine resin and pine resin. Yes, pine resin. And the last pile will be for the treated planks. And I think that should just about do it there. All right, this lumberjack has cleared all the trees in the area, so we can go ahead and clear those out. And let's start thinking about logistics for this area. We know we're going to want a zipline station right up here where our beavers will have easy access to it to get to their workspaces, which are mostly going to be located back here on the back half of the map. We want to make sure we set up another station that is within range of it, but has easy access to our logistics. And then we'll likely want to set up one up here near where our workspaces are going to go. But we're going to wait until we get those workspaces properly constructed before we lay that out. And those zip lines, we can actually go ahead and just connect them up right now. There we go. Now we can also set up housing. I think we're going to use the triple lodge for this. And I'm guessing we're going to need between 25 and 30 beavers. So we'll start with 3 triple lodges. Let's see, how do we want to lay this out? We want the beavers to walk past this zipline station on their way in and out of town. Let's see how we want to lay this out. I think it may work for us to set up 1, 2, and then let's see, could we do a third triple lodge right there? Let's think about this. What if we set up some platforms back here, just like so, and then we can set up a third triple lodge just in a row there. And we can place platforms directly in front of those to give easy access. Like so. And then set down a path right there. And this path becomes extraneous, so we can clear that out. And we could actually, since we know all of our beavers are going to be walking past this area, we can start setting down some of the decoration items, things like a bulletin pole or a beaver statue, which will boost their happiness. We can also set down, for example, a scarecrow. Can we do a scarecrow on the lower level? No, we can't. So we can do a scarecrow right there. We could possibly set in a shrub or a lantern and anything else that fits in one tile that they'll like. Let's actually move that lantern back one, because we know they'll get the benefit there. And that way over here in well-being, we do have a one tile item in the contemplation spot. So we can set that up right there. So that will boost our beaver's happiness and well-being. Now, I don't want to set the path to these houses yet because I don't want beavers moving into them until we set up that district. So that's one of the last things we'll be setting up. But that should give us a nice little boost to our well-being. This also leaves us some room to expand if we want, and we can even do some other things. So for example, we know we have some of these monuments that our beavers are going to like, so we can set those up, and maybe we'll do a monument to the farmers there. And then in the decoration, we have a roof section that we can put in, and then a second monument for the brazier of bonding there. And then we actually, let's see, well-being must be placed atop other building. I wonder if the rooftop terrace, if we build platforms here, can the rooftop terrace go up there as well? Let's see, let's try that out. See if that works. We can set up there, and then rooftop terrace. Yes, we'll fit there. So we'll have to figure a way up there. All right, and that can also give us access, easy, shorter access to the upstairs if we decide to do that. Although I do like them using the zip line and getting back through there as a sort of preferential way to get out into the town. All right, so that leaves us a little bit of space over here where we can do some other stuff. We can't plant a lot because the ground is corrupted, but that's not going to hurt anything. But what we can do is start constructing some core industries up. Let's think about what the industries will want. We're going to want a lumber mill, of course. We'll actually probably want 3 or 4 lumber mills. So it might make sense for us to have those all in one place. And of course, we can extend the ground using some platforms over here. So, and then another lumber mill. And at some point, we will want to move power across this road because I think we're going to want to build on the other side. But for now, actually, let's go ahead and do that now. And then we can set up things like gear processing down here. We can have, I think, 2 buildings making gears would be good. Probably only need 1 paper mill. So let's see. Tuck that into that corner there. And then 1 printing press for now. We may want a second later to do the punch cards, which were the second recipe of the printing press. But for now, we'll stick to books. And then we are going to need a wood workshop. I think we'll actually want 2 wood workshops because we are going to need a ton of the treated planks there. Now over here, we're going to want a tapper's shack in order to extract the pine resin from these pine trees. And I think that might be it for construction. So now we can turn to power. We're going to be using the solid power shaft in order to move the power across the road here, as well as between stories. And so we can go ahead and set that up and do a double high one there. Then place a platform there with a normal power shaft on it. And there we go. And that should connect all of these buildings together on the same power grid. Now, of course, building this many buildings is going to be quite a feat. Let's go ahead and tear down these stairs so we aren't going back into those upper hills. We can always rebuild those or change how that path is set up, but that'll give us a path back into the area behind where we want to set up our power and power production. And this could also actually be a good place for another zipline pole, especially if we can get one that connects to that first zipline pole. So let's see about that. Set up a post there. How close do we have to be? So we would actually have to be right there in order to connect up. That's fine. We can do that. And then we can connect this post to that one. And that will make sure that we don't accidentally clip through any windmills as well, if we can get that built sort of in advance. All right, now in terms of power, this is mostly going to be powered by large windmills, so we can start setting up some of those. And it looks like we can actually set those up right next to our lumber mills. That's excellent. Set up one there, there, and there. And use those as the start of a grid. We may want more gravity batteries just because these ones are all so close together. But these 5 batteries should give us plenty of power to run even this large of a setup fairly quickly. Our trees are starting to come in, and we are running into a worker shortage, which I think means it is a good time for us to start separating out these towns so we can start populating and making use of these houses. We're also very, very low on timber and planks. Need to make sure we mark our trees for cutting. That's probably a part of this, as we have all these trees here and we have not yet marked them for cutting, so we can go ahead and do that now. But we want to leave our pine trees there because those are not for cutting, those are for pine resin. Once we get start getting the logs from these trees, that will give us a huge amount of influx, plenty of planks, and we should be in a much better place. And I think now that we are starting to actually process through some of this, we are in a decent enough place to set up this district. So let's go ahead and place in a district center back here. And unfortunately, we can't place this while these roads are intact. So let's wipe out these roads. Pause, demolish this building. Let's finish placing down the roads that we had decided we liked, those ones. And now we can place down our district center. It's clipping into the structure, so we'll place it over here. And then we can place in our district crossing right there. This is also an opportunity for us to rename our districts. So we can go to District 1 and rename this Old Town, like that. And then go to our next district. And this one is focused. We will call this one the Lumberyard. Lumberyard. And then last but not least, we need to migrate the population. So we will go ahead and move people from Old Town, and we'll move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's do 10 adults to start. And that should allow us to have a couple of builders here and prioritize our building. We will want to be importing some food and water and other things there, so we'll need to manage distribution. But hopefully we'll start to see the number of beavers increasing because now these houses are available and both populations can sort of grow separately and independently. All right, so let's go into our manage distribution panel, and here where we can set what we import and export from each region. Right now, we are definitely going to want to make sure we are importing water and then our various food items in order to make sure that those come in. Now, beavers will eat from the import station, so we can leave those, but if we decide later on we don't want to be importing, for example, raw carrots or our grilled spatterdock, for example, we can choose to do that. And we can set those to only import if we have storage that is sort of in place for those. And that may be even something we want to do now so that we're not wasting beavers' time hauling those sort of less important items. Make sure we're only importing the things we actually want to keep. And our population has already sort of expanded rapidly and is going to, I think, continue to do so. All right, over here, it looks like we have exhausted our supply of metal. So that may be a high priority for our next episode, since this is basically all the metal we have got right now, unless we want to expand up to capture here. There is a mine up here as well, but I think we're actually going to take some a little closer to home and tap into this metal, which is just up the hill from our main reservoir and our farming area. All right, our district is fully constructed, and we have run into a couple of small issues. First off, we have several beavers who are injured back here. I don't think our one medical tent is going to be enough to cut the mustard there. So let's go ahead and expand with a couple of more medical beds. And I think we may want to see, is there a way to run a path? Yeah, so we can run a path and have sort of a secluded area back here where we set up some of these medical beds underneath these rails. We can run a path next back there like that. And that will give more beavers a chance to rest up if they need it. The other thing we're running into is we're having a hard time getting all of the trees off the back half of this. We only have one lumberjack in the district. I think we're definitely going to need more for the amount of wood that we're cutting. So we've got a couple of places back here where we can set a couple of extra lumberjack flags that will employ a couple more beavers and allow them to participate in that. Now, the other thing I've noticed is that many of these buildings are having a hard time getting enough resources to actually operate. And I think that we can solve that by setting up a hauling post within the district and employing a few beavers whose job is simply to move those resources around, to take the finished products and place them into storage, and to bring the new raw materials back in to allow our businesses to run a little bit more, or to allow our production buildings and factories to run a little bit more efficiently. Now, that is going to require some amount of population, and we're still building up our population. We're up to 22 working beavers, and we have 28 jobs. So we may want to expand this a little more. Fortunately, we have a little bit of room here that we could actually drop down another house. Place in, for example, another triple lodge here, and that would make sure we have enough beavers to continue operating this place. That would also give us a little bit of a buffer to protect against sort of death waves where we have multiple beavers who all sort of die at the same time. And it would also give us the opportunity, if we have some who are incapacitated and injured and need to be out for a few days, that those jobs wouldn't necessarily be completely vacant. However, having this population has sort of raised that there may be some other issues, in particular with water. Our global population is up to 94, and I am fairly sure that if we do the math on this, this large water pump can only provide water for about 75. Now, we haven't started running into water issues here in Old Town, but we are slowing down on how much we're able to import into the lumberyard there. So I think we want to go ahead and construct an additional large water pump and possibly a couple more large tanks over here. We can go ahead and place another large water pump there and run some stairs up to that, and then run a pathway up. That should serve our population well once that is all fully constructed. Now, in order to bank those planks, I think we can go ahead and clear out some of these old berry bushes. We're pretty well past the use of berries as a food source, and so we can go ahead and clear out, I think, all of these berry bushes. And when we have these spare workers, those will be removed, and we can place in some more water tanks to ensure that our beavers have plenty to drink and that we have a nice buffer just in case we have some very long droughts back to back. And it will also give us a warning sign, so to speak. You know, if we settle on having 10,000 water, that's enough for even a large population of beavers for 30 days or more. And if we start to see that drop, that will give us enough time to figure out how we want to solve that. Now, taking a look at our global view, our wooden resources are ballooning nicely. They're taking a little bit of time to spin up, but I think that's because we've been continuing with sort of some of the ongoing construction, but we're starting to see several hundred planks building up, several hundred gears building up, and several hundred treated planks building up. So those are sort of the core construction materials we're looking at. We're also starting to see books flow in, and then of course we have tons and tons of paper. So everything that we are building back here is looking good. And I think the last thing we'll want to do for today is clean up some of this area down here in Old Town that we were previously using for wood processing and production, and should be able to clear out some of these storehouses as well. So let's go ahead and just clear cut this whole area. Let's just take everything out. We'll also take out these lower level windmills. If we want, we'll be able to replace those with some large windmills later. And then we can prioritize clearing out all of this rubble. See if we can't get that into storage somewhere else. Like so. Now, with all of that gone, we can also think about how we might want to restructure some of what we have down here. And I'm wondering if we want to actually move these windmills to be out here in the water. There's no reason we can't have windmills in the water. They don't gain an efficiency like they might in real life, but that's okay. And so if we're able, let's see, can we construct a large windmill? Yes. So that is close enough there that we can construct one there. All we would need to do is get a path out there, and we could construct another one on this side. All right, these windmills have been built. Let's go ahead and set up power to them. Run some power shafts out here. Any of these things, like that. And let's go ahead and tear down our grist mill right now. We will need a grist mill. We'll actually need 2 of them, so we can set up new ones out here. And then this space we can now use for something else. We could, for example, set up another farmhouse back here and farm carrots, or possibly even do some more farming up here. I think actually this is an area that would benefit from being beautified a little. Yeah, we'll set up some crop fields back here, and I think that will help a lot. Set up crop fields there. Make sure we have a farmhouse that can cover those. Can't quite get that last one, so we'll go ahead and clear that out. Let's see, how far do these farmhouses reach? So they don't quite reach much out here. So if we do want to do some more farming down here, we'll need an additional farmhouse. No big deal. Put that up and plant carrots all out here on the end of this plateau and all back through there. This can just be one large carrot field out here. That will be great. I think that will help a lot. Clean up some of these other things with like a lantern out here, possibly another bulletin board to make sure that the beavers are just happy all the time, and even a scarecrow out here. All right, it looks like we have. Why do these not have power? Oh, we have accidentally blocked off power or construction access to the last power structure we needed over here. So we can go ahead and set up a set of stairs just for quick and easy water access temporarily or even permanently. May not hurt us to have some amount of water access down here. And there we go. Power is set up and we are doing well. All right, I think with that cleaned up, that should just about do it for today. We have our new woodworking district set up and squared away. We are continuing to build up large stockpiles of the resulting materials there, so that as we want to expand in the future, hopefully we'll have a much easier time of it. Now, one of the things that may be a challenge here is that we're going to need to set up distribution networks between different districts. So for example, if we end up wanting to set our metalworking district up here on this hilltop and take advantage of this mine and these ruins, then we will need a way to move the treated planks that we're producing over there into this district. And since we don't want to be doing multi-step logistics, what we may want to do is set up a zip line that actually extends this district across along the zip line to a district border just right there that is simply connected by the zip line, and that is sort of the path that takes them across the landscape there. So that's something we may want to play around with. But otherwise, I think we are in a pretty good place. And so I think that's where we are going to leave it for today. It is so nice to start stockpiling some of these materials and not have to worry about having, 1,000 planks or hundreds and hundreds of gears when we want to build a new major construction project. One of the things that has been challenging is looking at some of these larger projects like the Fountain of Joy here, thinking, where are we going to get 100 treated planks or 400 regular planks? And now we simply have those. That is very exciting. And I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. So I'd like to thank you guys again for spending a few minutes with me here in the world of Timberborn. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Leave a like if you have, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. My name is Dakoba, and I hope you have an epic day. I'll see you soon.